Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Factor. This is our daily show, our brand new show, coming to you every day right here on ITV Networks, channel 347, from 3:30 to 5 o'clock. And of course, I'm not alone. I have with me my colleague, Famira Kesam. Famira, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've got a jam-packed show again today.
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, and welcome to our viewers. We have a very interesting show, inshallah, today. We'll first kick off with the South African updates. Joining us now is Sean Herbs, the 911 media manager, Netcare 911. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Sean.
Thank you for having me, ma'am.
You're most welcome. Sean, you're on the ground and you're hearing all the incidents that are happening around South Africa daily. Could you share with us any information that you've received today or between last night and today?
Correct, ma'am. Well, notably, there are two incidences that have occurred that seem to be taking headlines, one in the Western Cape and one in KwaZulu-Natal. The one in the Western Cape, it was a minibus taxi and a heavy motor vehicle that were involved in a collision. Sadly, 7 people had passed away. Another 8 people are in a critical condition. They have been treated on scene. The scene is still active. Most of the patients have been transported through to hospital. As I mentioned, the patients are in a critical condition and the death rate there might increase. This obviously had occurred now in Melkbosstrand in Cape Town in the Western Cape. Then second case is in Miller Road in Durban, where an adult male believed to be about 50 years of age had been shot in what people on the scene had alleged to be a road rage incident. The man was found by paramedics in a serious condition. He was treated on scene by advanced life support paramedics, and once stabilized was transported through to hospital in a critical condition. The Pinetown SAPS was on scene and will be investigating.
Thanks so much, Sean, for that update. That's Sean Herbs from Netcare 911 Media Manager. Sean, is there any other information you'd like to share with our viewers or a message for the day?
There is currently, which has just come in, a shooting that is in progress in Bamboo Lane in Pinetown. We believe one person has died already. Our resources are on scene. They've just arrived on scene now. We're still waiting for feedback.
As you've just heard, we've received information right now happening in Pinetown with a shootout. Thank you so much, Sean, for that information. We're going to look now at the COVID. You're most welcome. We're going to look now at the COVID-19 cases in South Africa. For us, South Africa's COVID-19 death toll has now passed over the 57,000 mark.
It's quite sad.
Yeah, after 89 more people lost their lives to the virus on Monday, the recorded fatalities now sit at 57,063 since the outbreak. The latest deaths recorded in Gauteng were 25, with 23 in the Free State, 18 in the Western Cape, 17 in Limpopo, 4 in the Northern Cape, while the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal provinces recorded 1 death each. The country's cases have exceeded 1.6 million after 3,285 new infections were detected. The additional cases are from the 23,199 COVID-19 recently tests conducted, which represents a 14.2% positivity rate. According to the latest data, South Africa is currently home to 61,246 active cases.
Yeah, for me, I'm just listening to those cases, and I just hope that the people, are going to be very wise and just, stay safe. Wear your mask, sanitize, do all the necessary things with regards to making sure that this virus does not get out of hand. Well, staying with COVID-19, of course, yesterday we had an aptosa with regards to the potential Johnson & Johnson vaccine that could be coming into the country. Now, currently, SAPRA is, of course, one of the organizations that are going ahead, a regulatory body, in order to make sure that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine can come to South Africa and, of course, can be used for our educators. Now, joining me via Zoom is the CEO, Dr. Boitumelo Samete Magukotela. We're just waiting for Dr. Boitumelo to join us. Now, of course, what is currently happening is that SAPRA is in discussion with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to go ahead and try and just see, you know, if they can get this vaccine ready for our educators to be used. So hopefully, you know, they can go ahead. So we do have Dr. Boitumelo Semete Makukotlela on Zoom. Doctor, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Factor.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Doctor, I'm going to get straight to it. What are the current discussions between the FDA and SAHPRA with regards to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine?
Great. Thank you. I mean, we've been having almost daily conversations with the US FDA on this matter. And really at the core of it is to resolve the issue of the GMP non-compliances that were detected at the Emergent Biosolutions facility, which have affected some of the batches that have been made available to the Aspen facility for fill and finish. And so with the US FDA being the regulatory authority that has then jurisdiction, regulatory authority over the manufacturing facility in the US, it is important that we engage with them and understand what their decision is on that facility.
Doctor, I think one of the most important aspects with regards to this is ethics and, of course, good practice. So how is SAHPRA going to go ahead to make sure that when those vaccines arrive, that the vaccines have passed through the necessary ethical stages in order for the educators and whoever else wants to have the dosages of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine?
Yeah. So, I mean, the issues of ethics would have been also addressed during the clinical trial. So any study that's conducted on these vaccines would be authorized by the respective ethics committees. What we are concerned about as a regulator is matters of safety, quality, and efficacy. And, you know, the South African public, I'd like to urge them to have confidence in us as a regulator. And that's why for us it's important that any vaccine that is made available in the country, we are certain of the quality of that vaccine. So if there is an indication that the vaccine at any point of manufacturing was non-compliant, the facility was non-compliant, we need to engage on that and understand if there is risks and if the facility was indeed non-compliant during the time that batches that have been sent to South Africa were manufactured. And that is the key part of the decision that's required.
Doctor, the conditions, now I know that there was obviously the approval that happened from the 31st of March registration date. Now between that time and of course now, what are the other processes that have happened to make sure that this approval can be given for these vaccines to arrive here in South Africa?
Yeah, so there's two steps in essence of approval, right? So what we issued on the 31st of March is then what we call conditional market authorization. And one of the conditions was that the product must be manufactured under GMP conditions and that there must be regular reporting to the authority. The next level of authorization is when the drug substance arrives in the country, and in this case, it would be fill and finished at the Aspen facility and then gets released. For us to release that, it has to go through our national control lab that can then confirm that the quality of the product complies with the regulatory requirements. Now, under COVID, all of us as regulators across the world have agreed to apply what we call reliance, which means that unlike in ordinary circumstances where we would have sent SAHPRA inspectors to the facility in the US, where we can do the inspection and satisfy ourselves, at the moment we cannot. So we're relying on the decision by the FDA to be able to give us then the reports that confirm whether these batches were compliant or not. And so that is a second regulatory step. So this product remains to be authorized, but what is under question at the moment is the GMP status of the facility where the drug substance was manufactured.
I'm reading now, Doctor, that according to Reuters, the COVID-19 vaccine plant in Baltimore was halted. So, of course, the halting of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Now, if they're halting it, a lot of people would say, well, there's something wrong there. From a SAHPRA perspective, would you be concerned that there's a halting happening in the United States and this in itself may delay the process for those Johnson & Johnson vaccines to come here and, of course, help our educators and anyone else who wants to take these vaccine doses from Johnson & Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, we've been engaging with the FDA right from the beginning of this matter. And so we are aware that manufacturing has been put on hold while the FDA does its inspections. And it's an important step that needs to be done so that they can then satisfy themselves that does the facility meet regulatory requirements or not. Indeed, it has affected the national rollout program because by now we were expecting that these doses would be released and offered to the public. But because of this question around the GMP status of the facility, we've then had to also then say we're putting a hold on these vaccines being released.
Doctor, the concerns over the vaccine, and I get this a lot because people would say, hey, you know what, we've been hearing that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has some sort of a blood clots. Now, some might just try and push it as a conspiracy, but of course in media, and of course as a profession of your status, we need to work with facts. Has there been any reports with regards to the Johnson & Johnson vaccines having some sort of a blood clot that could affect people in the long run? And I'm talking about the side effects. So you get your doses and those side effects happen, because the last thing we need is, of course, side effects to happen. And after the dosage, this affects productivity for whoever is going to be taking these vaccines.
Yeah. So, I mean, the studies, and I'm sure you're aware of the reports that were issued, I think it was sometime early May or so, yes, wherein they picked up about 6 cases out of about, I think at the time they had vaccinated close to 8 million Americans, and they saw this rare condition. There's been causality studies that were done, and some of them are still ongoing. And there is an indication that some of these very rare blood clotting conditions could be linked to the vaccine. And so hence, from a South African perspective, we've then said we have to educate the public. If anyone has a risk or propensity to have blood clotting conditions, they need to notify their healthcare practitioner so that they can advise. We also know that COVID on its own, as a disease, it does have some vasculature impact on the patient. And so, there has to be caution that is exercised. And there are mechanisms in the country. We've put in place as SAPRA, the Med Safety app, wherein if anyone is experiencing some of these side effects, they need to report them to us. We're working with the Department of Health and with other clinicians to follow up on these side effects. So the good thing is that we know that they're being tracked, and if they're identified, we will then be able to manage them. But these side effects are very rare.
Doctor, the work that you're doing with regards to the Department of Health, as you've mentioned, and of course with the World Health Organization, have you been in discussion with the World Health Organization in just getting their expert advice in trying to make sure that when the vaccine rollout does happen, there's an ethical way of doing it, but also that every single citizen in South Africa has equal access to the vaccination?
Yeah, I mean, as a regulator, our mandate really ends with the product itself. So we don't get involved in the rollout plans, in the rollout strategies, whether there'll be equitable access. What we are concerned about as a regulator is that every vaccine that is available in the country, it's safe, it's effective, and it's a quality vaccine. And even the decisions around the FDA, I mean, we're not the only regulator that's awaiting that decision. The European Medicines Agency is awaiting this decision, as well as Health Canada. So we're all, working together to try to resolve this matter. And I know that the department, will take any questions you have around the rollout strategy itself, but I cannot speak to that area. Thank you.
Before I let you go, Doctor, if the public wants to sort of get advice from SAPRA, what would be the best way of communication? Because I think that, for our citizens here in South Africa, I think everyone is concerned with regards to the vaccine. So your advice to the public on how they can contact SAPRA in order to make sure that they can get the best advice with regards to vaccination and, of course, the regulation with regards to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got a portal on our website wherein they can report 2 things. Firstly, if they have any questions about which vaccine we've authorized, etc. We have a lot of content on our website, but also we've got contact details so they can reach out to us and we'll address those questions. Secondly, if they've taken the vaccine and they're experiencing side effects, we do have the Med Safety app. We've got the web portal that they can also utilize to report any side effects.
Dr. Boitumelo Samete Makoko Tlela, she is the SAPRA CEO, and there you've heard it from her. if anyone needs any sort of advice, any sort of expert opinion with regards to the vaccine, SAPRA will be able to go ahead and give you that advice. So, Doctor, we say thank you so much for joining us here on the Daily Factor.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there you go, the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. And I think for me, what's interesting is that we need bodies like this to make sure that when those vaccines come, you're not just willy-nilly putting it in someone's arm. They are there to make sure that the vaccines are ready to be used. Because it's one thing getting the vaccines, but it's another having it ready for the citizen to go ahead and put it in their body and know that they have a chance of not really having COVID-19 hitting them hard.
That's true, and it's on top of every educator's mind.
Yes.
I'm doing this to save myself, my family, my learners. How sure am I that I am safe at the end of the day? So it is a worry for our educators out there when they're going into this.
Well, you just heard SAPRA, and of course they've given their expert advice on currently what is happening. There's still discussions with the Food and Drug Administration in the United States with regards to whether the Johnson & Johnson vaccine at this moment is safe to be used for our educators and anyone else who could qualify for the next dose of the vaccination. Well, stay tuned to the Daily Factor. After the break, we will be having our Africa and World Update. Stay tuned. Well, now let's shift from local and we move to the continent of Africa. Now, the African Development Bank has set up a $10 billion fund to ensure nations on the continent they can service their debt and focus on a post-pandemic recovery. Now, currently, we have seen 43 out of Africa's 54 countries seeing that decline in revenue due to what is currently happening. Now, of course, last year in April, a very similar amount was set up by the African Development Bank, but this was with regards to a COVID-19 recovery plan. Now, joining me on Zoom, I have Mialani Mkabela. He's an economic analyst, just to go ahead and discuss yesterday's announcement by the African Development Bank. Mialani, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, and viewers.
Yeah, Mialani, I just want to start, of course, we saw yesterday the 10 billion that was set up by the African Development Bank. Now, this is completely different to the one that we saw last year. This is mainly focused on the servicing of debt and, of course, looking ahead to when, of course, the pandemic does end.
Thanks for that clarity, because you will look on April 20, and then you will find that the African Development Bank has issued a facility to just respond to COVID-19. Basically, during that time, it was for countries that are highly affected by COVID-19, looking at countries are having, a different degree of, being affected. And then you look at countries that are deeply affected, countries that are mild, and countries that are as well, at least managing from their fiscal situation. And then on the current year, you find it's a different situation altogether, because it is again the responsibility of Africa Development Bank to look at how the African countries are performing with regard to their debts, and then with regard to their national revenue. So, and that will have to assist in ensuring that these countries are not downgraded, because if the countries are unable to service their debt, or they are unable to look or attend to their national responsibilities, it becomes a huge problem for such a country to just even respond to minor aspects. But when you look at South Africa, it is a different case, and the things that we are talking about, it can as well happen that a South African might not understand, but someone who comes from a very impoverished nation they will understand like such. And giving an example to that, it can be Africa hosts a lot of African countries or a lot of people from Africa or from the diaspora. They are living in in South Africa. So it really assists from that context to understand that South Africa is different with some of the African countries in terms of its revenue collection, and then in terms of its stability, and in terms of a sustainable operation of its fiscal on a time to time.
Yeah, I think, Mialani, what's interesting, I was actually going to ask about South Africa. Now, I did try contacting Treasury to see whether South Africa falls into this category. I had no luck with regards to that. But from what you're hearing, is South Africa part of the countries that may receive this debt, or is it probably countries that are far much worse than what we are? Because you speak about downgrading, and I think that's an important aspect to avoid them being downgraded to its lowest level.
So you look at countries that when you attend to their sovereign and regional operations, the concessions, you find that they are strictly unable to attend to a lot of things in their country. So, but like when you look at South Africa, we are a different country actually with regard to that. And even if we might be considered to be having problems, but there are other countries that are having more problems than us. And then I think we really need to attend to that. And when you look on the amount, it being 10 billion US dollars, it can be a smaller facility if it will have to be taken to a country like South Africa, because when you look at it and you look at our budget on a time to time, you know, we are around 1.92 million, like 1.92 trillion budget. So that economy is very big. But like there are other countries, you know, like when you go to Uganda, you can go to Guinea-Bissau, you can go to Guinea-Conakry. Those countries are smaller. And then I think, and I'm not saying South Africa mustn't get this amount, but I don't think South Africa, it is within the bracket of this facility. And even if the Africa Development Bank can put a margin on that, but like a bigger chunk of it will be going to very, very affected economies. Like Zimbabwe, you know, like when you look at at SADC, you can look at Zimbabwe, you can look at Zambia. These countries, like you can indicate to them that they are struggling. And then you look at Mozambique. So there are different countries, but then when you look at South Africa, even when you look on our GDP statistics today, you will see that South Africa is a different country to those countries, actually.
Mialani, before I let you go, now, and I want you to debunk this myth for me, because when people say fund, they want to know whether this is money that the African Development Bank has allocated, or is this a loan? I tried to get information with regards to that. I wasn't able to be successful. So from what you are hearing, is this a loan, or is this money that has been allocated by the African Development Bank for the impoverished countries?
So these funds will be a funding for these nations. And it being that it will, you know, the Africa Development Bank will normally monitor it and see how this amount is used in each and every country, that they make sure that they allocate these funds. So that like if the countries probably use the funds not in relation to the funding criteria or to the expectation, probably they can increase the interest that are expected, because the countries will have violated the principle and use funds for certain activities other than what it was primarily allocated for. So it is not the Africa Development Bank, it's a bank but it's more of like, an African bank that attends to that. It's not really a grant where you can say we get things and then you just get your plastic and go. And then there's no accountability and governance in everything, but it's money that will need to be accounted for. There will be governance principles that needs to govern those like funds, because what matters most is funds must go to communities where problems are, but the funds are entrusted to the leadership. The leadership will be in the national level. That's not where communities are based. The people are living in communities, but the leadership, they are in the national. That's why, you find there's a very huge, so you will need to see how these funds move from national and reach communities that are expected to benefit from such funds.
Melanie Mkabela, economic analyst, we say thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, and the viewers.
Well, there you go, Melanie Mkabela, economic analyst, just breaking down, of course, what had happened at the African Development Bank, a press conference that was given yesterday to a $10 billion US. This is now not a loan, it's a fund, but the African Development Bank is going to have stringent conditions with regards to that, and one of them is accountability, and that's what's needed. I mean, $10 billion US is a huge amount, and of course, for me, what's important is that the impoverished countries get it. You heard Mielani saying that, your countries like Guinea-Bissau, a lot of them in the West Africa, right here in Southern Africa also, your Zimbabwe's, your Mozambique's, your Zambia's, they can get this money and they can try and rebuild their lives, especially in a post-pandemic era that we are currently living in. So it's interesting to see with regards to that. And right here on the Daily Factor, we will try to get Treasury on whenever they make themselves available to try and give us comment with regards to if South Africa is one of those countries that got the $10 billion US.
In the meantime, we're going to look at other news in Palestine. We're going to try and connect with Rena King from the SA Jews for a Free Palestine. Rena, are you joining us now?
Okay, I think we've just lost Rena here.
Okay, there's currently an eviction document for a Palestinian family circulating on social media, which we were going to place on screen, but we'll look at it once Rena can join us. And in the meantime, have you seen that document that's been going around on social media?
Apparently it's in Hebrew now. Obviously,
yes.
We're not fluent in Hebrew, but what we have, of course, understood is that. Wow, it's very sad because, remember, evictions have been happening most of the time. And I think when you see what is happening currently in Palestine, I think it really is a very sad situation currently what is happening.
So we'll continue. We've just got Rena who's joined us now. Welcome, Rena, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Famida. Good evening.
Good afternoon. Yes, Rena. Rena, there's currently an eviction document that's making its way on social media. I saw it last night, and I'm sure a few other viewers also saw this document. However, there's a lot of things that are being said on social media, whether it is an eviction document, but we don't understand Hebrew, so that's why I've asked you to please explain to us what's written on this document. The document will also come on screen for our viewers to see what we're talking about.
Okay, so first off, I don't speak Hebrew, but I did get a cousin to translate it for me.
Yes.
And the document says that the people in the house have to move out of the house, and the house is going to be demolished in 21 days.
Okay.
So it's not an eviction notice. This is forced removals. This is ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Jerusalem and from East Jerusalem at that. Now, East Jerusalem is the other side of the Green Line, which was designated as Palestine, if you believe in a two-state solution, and what is actually internationally legislated. So the international law says that house that people are being forced removed from, and that they've been living there since 1948. That house is in Palestine. So it's a notice from the Jerusalem municipality for people to move out of the house. And it says that if any of their belongings in the house are damaged when it's demolished, the municipality won't take responsibility for that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So who is this document addressed to? Which area residents from which area?
Okay, so this is Sheikh Jarrah. And as I said, that is on the Palestinian side. It's in East Jerusalem. That is not legally part of Israel, according to international law. And it's like the old apartheid South Africa, giving a notice to a Namibian resident to move out so that a South African can move in and we can make that land part of South Africa. And it's just ethnic cleansing. It is trying to implement the nation state law, which says that only Jews can govern themselves and can be have self-determination within Israel.
So in terms of...
they are trying to get land.
And in terms of international law, can people actually be told that their homes can be demolished in this manner?
Well, you see, it's the same as South Africa. I mean, in terms of international law and in terms of when people were forcibly removed from Sophia Town in South Africa, for example, or from District 6, it was legal. What's your problem? Nobody should complain. It went through the courts. It was legislated. It was in our parliament. It was a legal eviction. You know, it's just a case of legality. It's got nothing to do with politics or anything like that. But we know it has. And we know that and even the eviction, the forced removals from Sheikh Jarrah are even worse than that, because they are not part of internationally recognized Israel.
And Irina, now that you have the document, the SAJs for Palestine have been seen this document, and now that it's been brought to your attention, do you think the organization will consider writing a letter to Jewish organizations around the country to raise concern about this letter of demolition that is happening, that is also against international law?
Unfortunately, the chief rabbi wrote a letter which we have distanced ourselves from, which said that it's only a legal matter, and actually there's nothing wrong with it. So they've already taken a position on it, and they already unequivocally support an apartheid Israel state. And they will not, they have no empathy or no understanding for the oppressed people of Palestine.
And now that you've seen the letter, also you personally, how do you feel about this situation that the people are going to be losing their homes? Do you think it's in a few days?
This has been happening in Palestine since the 30s, since the 1930s. Even before that, when people have been forcibly removed and there's been ethnic cleansing of people's land. In 1948, more than 700,000 people were forced out of their villages. Whole areas of Palestine were people were forced to move and they thought that they would be coming back. Instead, Israel imposed a military curfew on Palestinians within Israel from 1948 to the mid-60s. And Palestinians have progressively been forcibly removed. They've been denied of their rights. They've been denied of land. They've been denied of building rights and expansion. And Israel has more than 65 apartheid laws. In fact, on your ID document in Israel, you are identified as Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, or whatever religion you are. So the laws that actually determine a whole lot of things for you in Israel. And it's very clearly an apartheid state. The nation state law actually legislated, the main law of the country now is that it's an apartheid country. It's a country for Jews. Even though it's 76% Jewish only, South Africa's 86% Christian. We don't legislate like that.
Yes.
And they've got the cheek to call themselves a democracy.
Very true,
Yeah.
very true. Thank you so much, Rina, for your time today. I'm sure we'll call you up again.
Yes, thank you very much. And please keep those people in mind and keep the people of Sheikh Jarrah and the Palestinians, keep them on social media, keep the pressure going, and international pressure, boycott, sanctions and divestment from Israel, to put pressure on Israel to do something about the injustices that they are perpetrating.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, we will definitely be doing that. And of course, it's the role of the media to go ahead and play that important role. Well, we're staying in Palestine. And of course, just last night, and I'm sure you've been seeing him a lot. He was 2 weeks ago on Famida's show,
Palestine
under attack,
yes.
Abdullah Rifat. Now, last night, his brother's house was, they went into his family's house and arrested his brother. And of course, his brother, alhamdulillah, has been released. So we're going to be speaking to Abdullah Rifat now just to get an idea of what happened. It ties perfectly with what Rina is saying. Forced evictions and, of course, security just walking into the houses and wanting to just arrest you for no reason. And that is just, 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, South Africa right through, where they would just walk into your house and go ahead and arrest you. So let me welcome Abdullah Rifat to just give us what had happened last night and the experience that, of course, him and his family had gone through. Abdullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran for joining us. Well, I don't think we have Abdullah then. So we're trying to get Abdullah just to go ahead and, give us an idea of what had happened last night. I mean, for me, just hearing it, seeing what had happened, I think it's really, really sad that, you're being woken up in the middle of the night or even Fajr time, you're praying Fajr Salah and all of a sudden you just hear bang, they come in, they want to arrest you, they want to find out whether you're harboring terrorists or all of that stuff, and you just think to yourself, wow, imagine living in a time like that. I mean, that is really, really sad.
I think South Africans, our elders can resonate with that experience, what Rina was talking about in terms of apartheid and what was happening during that time. But inshallah, we're going to be joining just after this ad break, and then we'll inshallah be hearing from Abdullah Rifat.
Welcome back to the Daily Factor. Let me get straight to Abdullah. Of course, he's the General Director of the Al Mizan Foundation and somebody that you know quite well here on ITV. Abdullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Abdullah, just give the viewers an idea of what happened last night, or this morning actually. You said it was Fajr time. The security police stormed into your house. They arrested your brother. Give everyone just an idea of what had happened.
First of all, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me again. Well, what happened this morning is something that is not strange to what, if we look at the general picture in Palestine. This morning at 4:30, just after Fajr, a group of policemen, a special unit actually, it's called the Yammar here in the Israeli police. They raided our house at 4:30 a.m. Under the excuse of searching for weapons. Right, they had a warranty also to search the house, and then, so they just came in. They didn't expect us to be up at that time for some reason. So when my father heard a motorcycle outside, for those who have seen the videos on my Instagram posts, first they came with a motorcycle came first, then a group of 10 men came on foot, and then a van followed them with more troops as well. So they came to the house, and then they literally just woke my brother Yassin. He was sleeping himself because he was going to work just a little bit after that, and then they started searching everywhere. So they literally threw all of our clothes, blankets, books, papers, laptops, everything. They took everything out of the cupboards and they threw it to the floor, right? They even searched the toys for my nephew's toys. There was my sister's teddy bear. They stabbed it with a knife, even though it had a zipper on it, and they just opened it and tore it like that. They threatened me as well to say that I'm on their watch list and that I must be careful and I should stop my activism. And I'm sure they know about the activism that I do in South Africa, or even here when I visit Sheikh Jarrah or Jerusalem or any of these areas. So, but I noticed that they didn't really know that I was actually in the country, which was a bit surprised, to be honest. And they didn't know that Yassin and I were related for some reason, because they asked, since when are you here, and are you related? I was like, I don't have to answer because they're not coming to speak to me, so I didn't answer them. But so they basically came, they raided the house, they did their search, and then when they didn't find anything, then they just took my brother. We asked why they take him. They said that it's just regular interrogations. So that's what happened this morning.
Okay, Abdullah, we're going to ask you. You look very good in that suit there that you have in your picture. Well, finally, I have you on video. Abdullah, we saw, obviously, in the last 48 hours, Muhammad and Munna al-Kurd getting arrested. Then, of course, what is happening to your brother. But, of course, we don't hear of what else is happening across Palestine. And, again, you've mentioned it. This has become a daily factor of what is happening, and it's just been intensified over the last few weeks.
Yes, definitely. What actually Muhammad al-Kurd said, it's a desperate tactic of intimidation and harassment against the individuals and the families to stop us from speaking truth to power, to stop us, from speaking about our just cause. And they just want to silence us because, as the father of Muhammad and Munna said, is that they are scared of the truth. They are scared of the young people who are now the young people who broke this cycle of fear that Israel has been working on, putting us, the entire Palestinian society, since Israel was, established.
Abdullah, before I let you go, just in terms of, because I know you deal with your foundation, the Al Mizan is, of course, a legal foundation and an entity that helps people like your brother, of course. So what is the legal ramifications of what has happened? Can this be challenged in court? And most importantly, if it does get to court, are we going to see it being thrown away, or will there be justice for those who have come in and, of course, did what they've done? I mean, the fact that they've taken your brother without real evidence of, you know, harboring terrorists or arms, what is the legal ramification with regards to this?
So yeah, in terms of like, they have no legal, grounds whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, I should inform everybody that my brother is now, he just got home, alhamdulillah. But that just proves that they had nothing against him. They had nothing against, they have nothing against anyone. Like we saw with Munna and Muhammad al-Kurd also, they took them in the morning and they returned them the same day. Also because of, you know, the posts that people share on social media. In terms of like legal matters, my father's immediate reaction was to call the lawyers from Mizan. Brother Omar Khamasi, he was up at that time also for Fajr. So he said, you know what, now we are used to all of this. So just let us see how long they will keep him. And if they kept him for longer than usual for interrogations, usual is like a day or so, then we go to the police station, we ask if there is any charges against him, but it didn't even have to go down that road. So what we are seeing now is that, you know, the police stations are full, right? So they have been arresting lots of youngsters like this, and they don't have enough space, so they don't keep many people for too long anymore, you know, which is in a way, it has, you know, both sides. It's a good and not good, because there's too many of our guys there, but also like now for people like Yassin, Munna, Muhammad, all of these guys that are getting arrested also now, there is no space for them. It also shows that, you know, Israel is desperate now, and that they don't know what they are doing. There is no legal background, there's no legal basis, I mean, for what they are doing. And it's just literally tactics of intimidation, and they are not interested in taking this to the court because they know that they will lose, even in their own, biased standards.
Abdullah Rifat, the General Director of Al Mizan, and a man that always gives us great comment right here on ITV Networks. We say shukran to you, and please do take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me again.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Well, Famida Kassem, she's going to be up next to give you your community news.
So looking at the Muslim stats in South Africa, we were looking at the rates of COVID-19 and people being affected by COVID-19 in South Africa. Now what we're going to do is we're going to break down for you the stats, Muslim stats. And to join us to discuss the Muslim stats in South Africa, people that have passed away in South Africa, Muslims that have passed away. Joining us now is Mohammed Wadi. He's the Director of Muslim Stats South Africa. Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed, and welcome. While we're waiting for Mohammed to join us,
I think you want to give the viewers the stats.
I think what I have so far is that as at yesterday, 2,783 Muslims were victims of COVID-19 in South Africa. So this is a huge yes, this is a huge concern that a lot of our Muslim people are also, affected quite badly with this COVID-19. Inshallah, we are trying to get hold of Mohammed Wadi. Mohammed Wadi has more inside information on the Muslim stats. Assalamu alaikum and welcome, Mohammed. Okay, Mohammed, if you can just unmute so we can hear you, so myself and the viewers can hear you. Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
I think for me, what's interesting is that we have to urge our people, especially the Muslims, to really go ahead and just take care. I think he needs to. What everyone needs to do is they just need to go ahead and they just need to look after themselves. That's the most important factor. And if we're not going to be doing that, I mean, going ahead and doing all of these, activities where they go ahead and they don't look after themselves, it's going to be affecting them.
I think it's everyone. Everyone needs to just be careful when they, participating in any event. Mohammed, can you hear us now? Okay, we're still trying to sort out the sound. We can't hear Mohammed at the moment. Mohammed, can you hear us? Mohammed?
I think we've just lost Mohammed there. You know, technology, sometimes it just goes against us sometimes. Yeah, but I think, you know, to continue the conversation, Famira, I think it's very, very important that, you know, that we all look after ourselves. So, you know, if there's a mayat that is happening and there's only a certain amount of people, and I know that the mayats they're just catering for families, please make sure, go ahead and take the mayat. So hopefully that everyone can learn that, especially in any sort of functions with regards to that, people can just adhere to the government protocols, wear your mask, sanitize, because this is the only way that we're going to go ahead and beat the virus. Well, after the break, we will be going ahead and having our market updates, which Famira Kassam will be talking with Petri Reding-Lim-Hayes, so do stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Daily Factor. Early on, we were trying to get hold of Mohammed Wadi, who's going to give us a community update on the Muslim stats in South Africa from Muslims who've been victims of COVID-19. Assalamu alaikum and welcome, Mohammed.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran for hosting me on your show.
You're most welcome. Mohammed, you on the road, you witnessing a lot of incidents and deaths, and you monitoring at the same time the number of Muslims that have been affected by COVID-19. Would you be able to share with us more details in terms of how many males and females have been affected lately, and what's the latest surge that you're seeing at the moment?
Okay, up to yesterday evening, the official stats that we released, we've got a total of 2,783 Muslim people that have passed away throughout South Africa. And this includes South African citizens, foreigners, whether legal residents or otherwise, across all the racial barriers. This month, and this is what is disturbing, up to last night, this month we have got already recorded 88 confirmed COVID Muslim deaths throughout the country. And what is disturbing is that the number is extremely high. We're sitting on an daily average of approximately 11 to 12 people passing away per day. In addition to this, up to about 2 hours back, for today, since last night, we already recorded 20 Muslim deaths, 15 of which come from the Gauteng area. I messaged someone to say today that I wish I could switch my cell phone off and run away. That's how depressing it is, and that's how serious the situation is. The total number of males that we have up to last night, 1,787, and 996 females. And before someone puts the question forward, a reply to that, why is there more males than females? And this seems to be a worldwide trend. Doctors perhaps cannot, put their finger on it, but they've perhaps, assuming or round it down to perhaps testosterone levels, etc. So this is a international phenomenon where more males are passing away from COVID-19 than females.
That's a very interesting breakdown. Basically, you've based it on testosterone levels.
That is what some doctors say. I'm not a medical practitioner, I'm not a researcher, but trying to explain the disparity between males and female deaths in the country. And this is something that they picked up before even COVID reached the shores of South Africa.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we get to our next guest?
Look, tonight, inshallah, we will release our next day. We release every evening. It's a pleasure to be on ITV, and hopefully we'll have regular updates. The purpose, obviously, is to make people aware of the seriousness of the virus, to also push back against people that are, unfortunately, and I don't understand how, still believing that the virus is a hoax, so we do not need to take precautions. And this is something extremely important. And part of Islam is to assist people in their difficulties, to show compassion. Another extremely disturbing trend that we're picking up, and it's not something rare, every day, including today. We'll hear of a person passed away, and 2 days ago his mother passed away. 2 days ago his wife has passed away. So entire families are coming to an end. Islam gives precedence to preservation of lineage. And we know one of the things is always to have children, pious children, to make dua for you. And the sad part is where family lineage is coming to an end. And it is not one or two families. We are talking, conservatively, at least 50 families in South Africa where that lineage has come to an end.
That's very sad indeed. That's Mohammed Wadi from Muslim Stats South Africa giving us an update on the fact that over 10 Muslims are dying every day from COVID-19 in South Africa. That's a serious reality that we are faced with. Inshallah, please take care. And joining us now, we're looking at the market indicators. Petri Redelinghuys, who's going to be joining us. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Petri.
Thank you for having me. Should we jump straight into it and get into what has been moving some of the markets today, I think?
Yes, most definitely. Please do.
All right. So, it's been a bit of a weird day. I think we spoke a little bit yesterday about how the anticipation was for the week to be relatively strong, and that was not the case as the way the market started. And again, that sort of continues today. So the top 40 index, as it stands now, we're about 13 or so minutes to go to the close. Top 40 index is up only 0.05%. So that is very, very marginally green. But at least I guess it is positive. I suppose for argument's sake, we could call that unchanged or flat on the day. Under the surface, obviously there's a little bit of movement. Resource 20 index up around 1/3%. Industrial 25 index practically unchanged, also down 0.03%. Financial 15 index down around 1/5%. The precious metals and mining index, which is one that has been doing really well, that did really well sort of post the immediate COVID crash last year. In recent times, it's been under a bit of pressure. And that theme continues today, down around 1.3% on the day. And then general retailers, or the retailers index, down also marginally, only 0.1%. So I guess a bit of a lackluster, disappointing performance for the day. I think most of the excitement, I guess, that will probably make the news is the Tugela mining listing today that was obviously spun out of Anglo American PLC. So the coal mining operations is now a separately listed business, and that is up some 25 or 26%. I'm not sure 100%. It's moving relatively quickly, but it was up around 26% from listing price a few minutes ago. So that, I think, is probably leaves a positive feel to some of those shareholders. Some of them were very concerned around, why are the coal assets being separated? And there's a lot of sort of rhetoric in the market going around, what is the actual value of this coal mining asset, and are they just unloading it? Is it technically worthless? There are obviously some short side analysts saying that the stock has no value, and today up 25%. I think a lot of shareholders feeling somewhat pleased with the result that they got from that. In any case, moving on to international markets, just to compare our performance versus the rest of the world. In the UK, the FTSE 100 index is up just under 0.5%. Germany, the DAX index is, like us, very, very marginally down, 0.05%, so we'll call that unchanged. The French market, the CAC 40 index is up just over 1/3%. In the US, the S&P 500, as is the case with us, 0.05% down, so we'll call that unchanged. Dow Jones Industrial Average currently down just over 0.1%. The NASDAQ, the tech index, is up around 0.2%, so that's performing relatively well compared to the rest. And a theme or a trend that we've seen over the last almost a year now, maybe a bit longer, the Russell 2000, which is the index of the 2,000 smaller companies in the US, up 0.8%, so outperforming the rest of sort of equity markets in that space. So small caps doing better than large caps, which has been the trend for a while. So we'll see how long that continues. So I guess, overall, a relatively mixed picture of markets. So it's not just our market that feels a bit directionless. In the commodity space, gold price down just over 0.1%, currently trading at $1,895.90 a fine ounce. Platinum price down just over 1% at 1.1% down. Actually, $1,161.90 a fine ounce there. Energy prices, Brent crude oil up around 0.25%, $71.65 a barrel. That has been relatively strong. Continued expectations for higher oil prices in the immediate future, at least. In any case, West Texas Intermediate crude oil, which of course is that which is produced and traded in the US, WTI crude oil, is also up around 0.6%, trading at $69.65 a barrel. In the world of currencies, the rand a little bit on the back foot today. It had a great week last week, but so far this week it hasn't been doing too well. It's sort of 0.2% weaker versus the dollar at the moment, trading at 13.57 rand, 0.6% weaker versus the euro at 16.54, and about 0.5% weaker versus the pound, trading currently at 19.21 rand. Then lastly, looking at the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin falling on its sword in a big way today, almost 12% down at this stage, $31,788 a coin.
Petri, before I let you go, it's Farazia, and good afternoon to you. Petri, we saw today, of course, Stats SA releasing the GDP figures for the first quarter. 4.6%, it went up. I just want to get your take with regards to that.
I mean, I think it was slightly better than anticipated, right? I think on a year-on-year basis, it's very difficult to pull any sort of meaningful conclusion from GDP data. I mean, if we compare even with, company results that are coming out this year, the improvement from last year is absolutely massive, right? But that's because last year, half their world, and not just us, but, most of the world shut down for a brief period. So from a short-term perspective, comparing, now, compare what happened in 2019 to what's happening now, right? That would be a more sort of accurate comparison. I mean, in general, we know South Africa is in trouble. It's been a really tough time. Unemployment is high. GDP is continuously sort of shrinking. So I think it's slightly better than anticipated, right? I mean, we are recovering slowly, which is great. But I think that more meaningful data points will come a bit further down the line. Let's see how we're doing in the third quarter of this year. And the fourth quarter of this year, that will start giving us better comparison if we're comparing third and fourth quarter to last year, third and fourth quarter, because then, that's already when we started coming out of this COVID lockdown sort of economic crunch that we've been through. And then we've got, data that I think will start to make a bit more sense again. Comparing this quarter to the same period last year, I mean, not a lot of business was taking place during that time, right? So it's really easy to beat off a low base, if that makes sense.
Petri Reddingling-Hayes from Herenia Capital Advisors, we thank you so much. We're going to jump straight into our sports update. Looks like we're trying to get Matlatsi Mpahlele just to go ahead and give us an update with regards to the wrap-up of the DStv Premiership. And again, we'll have Petri Reddingling-Hayes again tomorrow at 5 to give us the market updates. Well, I think we do have Matlatsi on Zoom. Matlatsi, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. Hi, Matlatsi. Well, I think Matlatsi is trying to get on there, so we can go ahead and just speak to him with regards to the wrap-up of the DStv Premiership that, of course, concluded over the weekend. Of course, Mamelodi Sundowns winning the league, 67 points. They finished 13 points clear of surprise finishers Amazulu, followed by Orlando Pirates, Golden Arrows, SuperSport United, Morocco Swallows, Cape Town City, and of course Kaizer Chiefs. They were out with regards to potentially being in the mix for a top 8 finish, but they were able to go ahead and get that finish. So we are going to try and get Matlatsi Mpahlele just to discuss with us. Of course, this is the first season that Mamelodi Sundowns had won. They were without, of course, one of their most charismatic managers and one of the great managers of South Africa. That's none other than Pitso Hamilton Mosimane. Let's see if we can get Matlatsi on the line. Matlatsi, good afternoon. Matlatsi?
Yes.
Hi, Matlatsi. It's good to hear your voice, Matlatsi. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. We can't get you on a video, but it's fine. We can have you on audio. Matlatsi, just your wrap-up of the DStv Premiership season. Mamelodi Sundowns finishing 13 points clear. Deserved winners, weren't they?
No, I mean, there's no doubt about that. Deserved winners. They were very much in control of the season. They pretty much led the log from the beginning to end. They won the league with 3 matches to spare. They scored the most number of goals. They won the most number of matches. They considered the least number of goals. Pretty much dominant and definitely deserved winners. And I'm just worried about what's going to happen next season, because they look like they're a team that can still dominate for the next few years to come.
Yeah, Matlatsi, Amazulu was a surprise package, weren't they? I mean, you get Benny McCarthy coming in, and he's just changed this team around, hasn't he? I mean, we haven't seen a team from KwaZulu-Natal, finishing this high on the log in quite some time.
Yeah, Benny came, joined Amazulu sort of with the season already started. When he arrived there. They were in trouble. He came through. He changed things around, and he got his former teammates with the national team, Slamkat and Bele Nomvete. Like we say in the surprise packages, I didn't think that they will maintain that momentum, but they did very well. To finish second ahead of Pirates was something that is very commendable. They have qualified to play in the Champions League next season, which is going to be a test for them, because then it means they will have to juggle, traveling on the continent and also negotiating the situation here at home. But for them also, a very, very good season. And I hope that they can continue being competitive, because Amazulu is a big team, and we want to see big teams like Amazulu, like Chiefs, Pirates, Sundowns doing well in this league. And also, it's good for Benny McCarthy, because he's somebody who, at some stage, was mentioned along the lines of Bafana. It's good to see local South African ball coaches doing very well. The only thing which I don't agree with them is, I know it's a contentious issue, the coach of the season. For me, I think that the Sundowns coaches should have been named the coach of the season, but those who decided the way it was. And congratulations to Benny McCarthy and his assistants at Amazulu.
Matlatsi Mpatlele, sports reporter, we thank you so much for making the time for us, and we'll definitely be in contact, of course, when the season does commence next in August. And of course, we look forward to hearing your expert advice.
And I'm sorry about my voice. I'm gone down with flu, but I hope that I was audible enough here.
No, you were definitely audible enough. And please do take care, my brother. And we look forward to speaking to you sometime in the future. Matlatsi Mpatlele giving us a breakdown of the DStv Premiership season. Famida, that's all the time we have for you on the Daily Factor.
Yes.
So we say Jazakallah to you, Famida, for being, again, a great host alongside me. And of course to the viewers for making the time for joining us here on the Daily Factor. From myself, Faraz Patel.
And myself, Famida Kasim. Thank you for joining us, and do join us again tomorrow, inshallah, same time.
Assalamu alaikum.